Both the stock and crypto markets closed last week deep in fear, with Bitcoin sentiment hitting extreme fear levels for the first time in months. And many traders and investors are now convinced that the 4-year cycle has already peaked, and that the October 6th high marked the top of this bull market, and that a long bear market is now beginning as we head into the year 2026. But my friends, if that were true, it would be the first time in Bitcoin's history that the majority actually were able to call and get the top correctly. Meanwhile, gold's breakout has only added fuel to that fire, with growing talk that it's signaling an incoming crash in both stocks and crypto. And folks, while anything is possible here, I'm going to be sharing why that narrative might be just a bit premature, and why Bitcoin, equities, and even the housing market could still see yet another strong leg higher into next year before the real shift begins. But first, I want to hear from you down in the comments section. Be sure to drop a one-word answer. Drop the word bull in the comments if you think the market's rally into 2026, or the word bear if you think that the tops are already in. My name is Paul Sampson. Welcome back to DataDash. All right, folks, currently Bitcoin is pushed back up to the $111,000 area after seeing support at the 886 level at about 103,700. Now, Friday morning, as we traded right into that region, I put in the Discord this setup. We were looking for a potential harmonic that took us back up towards this $120,000 area. Of course, not overlooking a few key areas in between that would potentially be ran back up into between Sunday, yesterday, and into Tuesday of this week. Now, of course, again, we were trading right into this region here. Max fear was coming along the way, and if that was the case, we would be seeing a pretty quick move over the coming days, right? So currently, again, that's not something I can absolutely marry from here because that's not a complete setup quite yet. It's just something that I was noting when we were at these regions, along with a couple other things I was looking at as well, right? And regardless of what happens overall, we were looking at max fear again in the crypto market and the stock market on Thursday and Friday, which usually just at least leads to a short-term relief rally. So locally, we're hitting again our head at about 111, still really looking into this 112, 115 area. And if things get going in a hurry and that harmonic does come into play, then I'm targeting all the way back up towards potentially 120 in the coming days here. But not getting overly married to that, as I stated. It's just a setup that is potentially there. And more than anything, it actually doesn't come into play until we're up in that area. So just again, preparing and noting along the way. Now, let's take a look at a little bit more of a bigger picture here for Bitcoin, local areas aside. One of the biggest things that I've been noting here is that while, yes, we could pull back into the 80s, the 90s, maybe the 70s from that 126, which was always the region. Now, of course, that was a little front run of the overall area. I was targeting 130,000 to 140,000 was the big region that I'd looked for on Bitcoin as we came into it. Again, which was derived off of this major AB equals CD setup. I was looking for the high side of it to come in around the week of the 29th of September, which is this white line right here, which essentially is where we topped a week later, I suppose. But when looking at this the entire time, I'd noted that even when we were coming up to this region in August, that was about a month before that window. This was very close. It was only a few percentage between, and that this setup was a pretty valid setup even then. All right, now it just so happens that we did top out on that time frame for the fib time to come in. Again, 1 week difference or a couple days difference, but by and large, I would say that that's pretty much on time. And then this setup here, valid down to our first target, which was the 382 around 106. Of course, we dipped a little bit below that, but so far we've been holding that region as support. And now the secondary target of this setup is actually down here at $92,000, 94 give or take, which is the gold pocket of this overall last move up. Now, again, this is a weekly time frame. This is a really big setup. This is dating all the way back to our carry trade low of August of 2024, our inauguration high, our tariff war low, and then now to, of course, just the highs that came in just recently. And you'll see I have just a few areas on the chart currently. We just kind of covered the more local areas that I'm looking at, which is essentially 112 to 120. Really got eyes on the 112 to 115, but potential for 120 here. And then the only other major level that we've had on the chart for quite some time is the 97,800, which are two high time frame averages for this year that have not been back tested yet. And even though we have this, little area to be aware of down here, which by all means we could even push up to this region here, eventually roll over to this area, and still hold a pretty decent bullish setup here, right? Because overall, you're still looking at this recent trend as putting in higher highs, higher lows, what have you. And for me, this is a very normal action, price action to see out of Bitcoin specifically. We see it time and time again. And stated earlier that this was going to be the next area we'd see the sizable correction come out of, right? So where we saw the last sizable correction come right here, the last sizable correction come right here. Note that both were pretty sideways and down, right? This was a little bit more aggressive one here. As far as quickness, thank goodness, we didn't have to wait 6 months for this. It was only 3. But overall, I anticipate a very similar situation where we are now to be a big, a slow burn. You're going to get pops, you're going to get drops. Overall, I imagine we make our way down to this $97,000 area. And without looking at that AB equals CD setup that we were just looking at, where we targeted a time frame, a target window, and all those things, just looking now at the range data that we've put in here since the beginning of this year, and I'll go ahead and I'll cover this for everybody here, so make it nice and clear what the range is. You can see here that we've essentially been moving on throughout this region. Okay, this is where we spent the majority of the time this year. We got that push higher here, take out everybody, liquidity sweep, whatever you want to call it there. Then we've got the pullback to our point of control, which is our natural area once we're re-entered into a range, currently holding that as support. And overall, I do anticipate that we will rotate this range, meaning rotation from high to low in this case, down to the low. And wouldn't you know what is sitting right at that low side? It's at 97,852 on the dollar, which is, again, our 2 high time frame averages. Given this little window here is the next overall target of the AB equals CD, I would say that coming down to this region here is very likely in the coming weeks and months here. And overall, that would not be overly bearish, okay? So to me, I still anticipate actually that we will see continued moves to the upside in the following months here as we walk into 2026. I think that people will probably be pleasantly surprised or unpleasantly surprised by the price action that probably ensues here, which again, I just think we're going to range here for a bit for Bitcoin, just kind of consolidate, get everybody nice and arguing, right? Whether the bear market's in or the bull market's in or whatever the case is. Everybody always argues when we go sideways like this regardless. But I'm going to be preparing for the bigger moves here. And while yes, anything is possible, the top could be in, we could absolutely just crash into the abyss. I'm more so focused at that $97,000 region. Let's call it 92 to 97, a little $5,000 buffer. That little area there, depending on how we react, I think still could come in and hold as support. I think we're likely that we make it to there in general. It's right under 100K. Again, you're going to be met with all the fear and everything like that. But that level, for several reasons that I just pointed out, and a couple more that I don't even have on here, is very, very crucial and key as we walk into the final few weeks of 2025 and as we head into 2026. And folks could very well see us pushing even all the way back up to the high side of the range, putting in a lower high, right? Coming all the way back down and tagging this later. Again, I don't anticipate this to be a very quick move. I think that actually this is going to be weeks and if not months before we get to this region, okay? So happy if it gets there quicker and we can reevaluate when we do. And of course, there's no guarantee that we even get to this, but at the moment, this is how I'm breaking things down. This is my strategy at hand. This is how I'm viewing the market. Any kind of short-term moves, I'm anticipating that we will eventually come back down to this region, even with a push back up towards the 120s, okay? And the idea at hand here, folks, would be essentially this, that we would come down, we'd hold that $92,000 to $97,000 area, get everybody really, really big and bearish, okay? Especially as we come into major support here. I think that people really don't look towards the technicals. They're just purely viewing, and again, it's not everybody. When I state the word everyone is doing this, I do know that that's not the case, right? So it's just the loudest ones that people can see. I will state though, I had a family member reach out, which nothing, and not making fun of this or anything like that. It's just when the sentiment gets to that point, and he was just literally just checking in, right? He was like, hey, what do you think of this? I'm seeing literally nonstop things on my feed that says sell everything. Again, this is Friday before the market kind of rebounded here a little bit. And it was that everybody's selling everything. The top is in, the market's about to crash. Like, what do you make of that basically, right? As a family member reaching out. And I just felt like that was with the extreme fear at the highs as we walked into the weekend. It just really set up a move here that we would probably see an upside come. We've had a small bit here for Bitcoin and a little bit for Ethereum too, but I could see us actually pushing a lot higher here, like the altcoins especially. So it's just something to kind of keep in mind there. But overall, this is my theory and this is the thesis at hand for the bigger pictures that we slowly make our way to 97-ish. We'll see how we react down there, of course. We might dip below it for a few days and reclaim it and all this. It's not a guarantee that we're just going to come down, tag it, and just run to the races. But if I had to imagine how the next moves on Bitcoin looked, it would look something along these lines. And we'd head back up towards new all-time highs as we walk into next year in 2026. Now, Ethereum, which is, in my opinion, the biggest reason also why I'm pretty bullish on at least Ethereum as we walk into 2026, and I'll highlight that after this just Ethereum chart. But just the more local or the current breakdown of price action is that, we got this huge drop back down right off of the yearly open, and at the time, this was an untapped high time frame average. So just like I'm pointing out that the 97K area on Bitcoin, which is currently 2 high time frame averages that are untapped, we can get there in a hurry. Okay, so mind you, from any piece, whether it's from where we are now, whether we push up and you get a drop, you get these really quick wicks like that. A lot of times those are mean reversion plays. All right. Really good example of how that occurs right here, right? So there was a good one on XRP when we started off the year this year. This was a good one for ETH, which this really wasn't even a major area. This was only a monthly average, okay? But you can see how we front ran it down here. So originally I thought we'd come down and tag it when we started off the month of August. We front ran it effectively, ran it back up, and then during that huge crash, come down, you take out the low for 1, you come down to a high time frame average for 2, you come down, back test your yearly open for 3, and as long as we're above the yearly open, folks, things are in good shape, honestly, for, well, at least the rest of this year, right? And next year we'll have a new yearly open to work off of. But same idea here. More than anything, looking for us to probably range around with ETH. We got an untapped daily level of resistance above us here at 4,500 if things get going here soon. And then, of course, still targeting back to our all-time highs and everything like that. But just ranging around in this region for now. And I've tightened this chart up a little bit, but this is the #1 reason why I've been and remain bullish on Ethereum, okay? Big bullish reversal setup that took 6 years to complete. We are in the midst of it unfolding here. Now, I will state that, in theory here, one of the major target areas have been met, even though we front ran it a bit, but again, nothing's perfect. But overall, this is what I anticipate out of ETH versus BTC, which right now we've pushed up. We've come back down and got a bounce off our 382, which is from this last local push up here. The bigger picture targets are still the 382. And then the gold pocket here of this setup. And I still imagine that we are going to make our way up towards these areas into December 2026. So not that we're just going to start making our way, which is where my landing zone is. So in the next coming months here, maybe we range around for a bit. You start off next year, for example, and it's, for Q1, it's Q2, it's Q3, it's Q4, whatever the case is. That's my vision here for ETH BTC, which is, again, the idea that our 2026 to 2029, which I know is a wide range, but it's just kind of an area that I've been looking at for a long time. So I tightened this up for the target zone to be at the end of 2026 into Q1 of 2027. So this is about now a 90-day window. I'll adjust this, of course, as we need, if need be. But that is another big reason why I do look to 2026 as being pretty bullish here, actually, for at least Ethereum, which usually is in turn bullish for the altcoins. Okay, so even if we didn't see a massive, altcoin rally like everybody really wants from this push here, this was a 250% move out of ETH price. This is when we hit $1,400 in April, up to $4,900 here just recently. And we did see a substantial amount of, things running, right? So this is where CRO just had a 400% rally in just a couple weeks. We had Solana go from $97 to, 200 plus. We've seen several other altcoins doing pretty well. The Zcash push where, you just saw 700% in a few days. So it's not that nothing is moving. It's just not everything, right? So you just got to be picky in that sense. But to me, this chart only references ETH, which shows me that ETH will outperform or should outperform Bitcoin in the coming, year here. So another reason why I look to the year of 2026 to be potentially a little bit more bullish than most are anticipating. So we'll see how it goes. Of course, like I said, this is somewhat played out to the T already, where we had that nice push up already with the 240% move out of ETH. But I do imagine that we actually push up to make a new all-time high here. But as always, taking in new information as it comes, adapting along the way. S&P 500, the stock market just recently opened today, and we're pushing pretty much back up into our all-time highs yet again. This is a weekly time frame here, so just kind of looking over this in a pretty big picture. But nothing's really changed for me on this. I still anticipate we are slowly making our way towards 7,000, which doesn't seem too crazy now that we're at 6,700. We've got our 2024 high to be aware of here. As we come into the next few months, we might range around a little bit, but at the moment, I still target higher here for the S&P. Nasdaq, same thing, likely heading towards that $28,000 with, again, probably ranging around here a little bit. There's going to be pullbacks along the way, but $28,000 for the Nasdaq. Gold has been absolutely killing it. With a huge push above that yearly level, which was essentially our all-time high from 2020, I do believe. As soon as we flipped it, basically just a straight beeline towards the 1-to-1, no, all gas, no brakes, right through it. And now looking at this $4,400 area as our next little region where we may see a little cool down. And then we have silver as well, which in the beginning of this year, right, we were looking again just for a little pullback into our 382 area. We got it, and since then, same deal, just off to the races for both silver and gold, which usually is an indication that investors are seeking out other methods of, hedging their bets essentially besides the fiat currencies. And historically, we've seen when gold and silver, precious metals, things like that do rally like this, it's usually preceding a major downturn in the markets. It's right before, big uncertainty events occur, like global conflict, stuff like that. And while I do think that that is on the horizon, I just am going to point out that usually when we do see that, it's still a little bit down the road, right? So we might have another year and a half, whatever the case may be, okay? Again, leading into the idea that 2026 may actually be bullish versus what everybody, and I know yet again, not stating that everyone, but there's a big crowd that is really trying to call the tops of the markets, and for the millionth time at this point. And for good reason, you should be cautious at these areas. This is definitely not a time where I would state go out and get into this market. Again, that 2026 to 2029 region for me was always the area where I foreseen that the market, if it's going to have a catastrophic, pullback, a depression, or any kind of stuff, like it's going to be in that window of time. And 2026 to me is definitely a no investing spot for myself personally. Which means that I'm not deploying any new large capital at 2026 or after. I'm going to be actually looking to scale out heavily of these markets, and then really just reevaluating everything as we're coming into it, right? So could I be wrong and markets just continue straight through that time frame? Absolutely. And if that's the case, well, then the whole way up, I was not overly bearish at the wrong times. I've stayed in. I managed to, maneuver pretty well as we go into it. And then the worst case is I'm sitting on some cash, so whatever. But for now, nothing has changed. I think that even with gold and silver pushing up like they are right now, it's very interesting to me and kind of almost fuels the idea again that we have probably about a 12 to 15 month window here. Loose, of course. We just got to really be on our P's and Q's here until we get that next major correction in the market that everybody's been waiting for, and they might still have to just keep waiting. So folks, no matter where you stand right now, bull or bear, what's clear is that we're entering one of the most important stretches of the entire market cycle, to me, the 20-year market cycle, that is. And the key is to stay informed, to stay disciplined, and keep emotion out of the decision-making process. If you would like access to my daily market updates and Nicholas Mertens' monthly Dash report, head on over to the DataDashPro.com website. It's where we track these moves in real time and prepare you for what's ahead. Again, that's DataDashPro.com if you're interested. Thank you all so much for tuning in. Please take care of yourselves. I'll see you all in the next one. Until then, everybody, cheers.